What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Live One for One, where we have conversations that challenge us to live a life that will change a life. My name's John, and today I have a new friend of mine, and this guy is a legend, Damon. Damon, I already forgot your last name, dude. Good Lord.
Dyer.
Damon Dyer. So I actually just met Damon, what was it, like a week ago? 2 weeks ago?
I think 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah.
2 weeks, or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So your caseworker, she calls and she said, hey, there's this kid named Damon. Man, God has just done so much in this dude's life. You need to connect with him. And I'm like, okay, great. You know, I'm always up to connect with somebody. And so text you were like, immediately text me back. Next thing you know, we're eating Mexican food with you, me, and my kids at the table and just going to town. What did you eat that day? Because I need to get this on a recording so I can order that next time. Because your food looked way better than mine.
No, yours. I went to Mango's the weekend after that, and I was trying to find out what you got. But yeah, it was the burrito tacos.
The burrito tacos. Yeah. So if you're in Lebanon area or anywhere, get the burrito tacos if you go to get Mexican food. So good. Because yours looked way better than mine. So no, but dude, I'm excited to have you here, man. You know, I think one of the things I love about this podcast is, you know, we really do have conversations that challenge us, and challenge me personally, challenge others to live lives that are just bigger than ourselves, you know, and we bring people on from just all walks of life. And when I was talking to your caseworker, the great Stacy McPherson, if you know her, if she's listening, what's up, Stacy? We love you. And maybe if you're not from Tennessee and you're listening, you have a caseworker that you know, man, send them some love, because these caseworkers work hard. They're tired. Sometimes they're hopeless, as you know, bro. And man, we just love our caseworkers. But Stacy reached out to me and she's like, man, you got to connect with Damon. And so you and I were talking, man, and I would just love to hear, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about your story. And for those that are tuning in, we're just kind of keeping it raw. We just popped our Celsius cans open. It's we're recording this on a Saturday. Yeah. I got sparkling orange and you got kiwi guava. Yeah. So we're going to be probably talking a lot faster soon as we start to feel the caffeine.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But dude, where are you from first off, man?
I'm from here, Lebanon, Tennessee.
Lebanon. So you're born and raised a true, do they call you guys actually like a Lebanite? Lebanonite? Is that a thing?
I don't know. Maybe Lebanese.
You never heard that word? You never heard that?
I didn't. No.
I just heard it the other day.
Really?
They're like, no, I'm not a Lebanite. And I'm like,
I never heard that.
I've never heard that. But that's weird because you're from here. So maybe they just made that up.
Like our high school mascot, the Devils. Oh, yeah. I mean, we're a devil.
There you go. That's awesome, bro. So you're born and raised here. And you're 18 right now, right?
19.
19.
So
okay.
I'll be 20 in November.
20 in November. Okay. And tell me a little about your story, man. So you been in the foster care system for a while, correct?
Yeah. So since I was 13.
Okay.
So 13 to 18. 13
to 18, you go into foster care. I guess first off, like, if you feel comfortable, why did you go into foster care?
Like actual reasons?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I went in for aggravated burglary.
Okay.
So I went in through that way, and then over time they investigated like family issues and stuff. So that's when I went into actual like foster care.
Okay.
Through family issues.
Gotcha. So aggravated burglary at 13 years old.
Yeah.
How do you I know my son is 13. He wouldn't even know where to start to do that. Like,
right. Yeah.
I mean, God bless him. I love him so much. Hey, dude, he wouldn't have no idea. Like, how at 13 years old, like what comes into your mind at that point to where you're like, man, you know, was there other things going on at home? Was there just things that you were dealing with maybe things that you needed that you just weren't getting, and that's why you did it? Or walk me through that.
Yeah. So, main thing was definitely like influences.
Yeah.
So I had older influences, and then I was also like super into like rap music.
Okay.
And it just like influenced me, and that's how I wanted to be. Like, that's just
gotcha.
By the time I was like 12,
yeah,
I kind of made it up in my mind that that's kind of the life that I wanted to pursue.
Okay. Gotcha. And so when you ended up with that charge, they took you out of custody they took you into custody for the majority of the reasons of behavioral and because of like charges that you had, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then at that point, tell me like what your journey was like.
Yeah, from that point on, it was pretty much I stayed in residential facilities from 13, 14, 15. And then...
Can you describe real quick for those that are listening, like what is a residential facility? Because that's different than a foster home.
No, yeah, definitely, 100%. So a residential facility is mainly like troubled kids. So you have foster homes, that's kids that don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And then residentials are kids that have charges or just are troubled at home and their parents don't want to deal with it. And there is kids that get placed in residentials because they can't find foster homes. So it's just basically like a house-like setting that's not a house.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think it's always good to discuss like terminology because there's so many acronyms and so many things that people use in this space. And it really is like its own world in some spaces. And so I think when we can describe things for people that are listening to how, hey, here's a group home versus a different group homes are different than residential homes.
Right. Yeah.
And, obviously, level 1 foster homes are different than a therapeutic foster home. And so for people to kind of learn that language and understand kind of why, I had a lady just even the other day say to me, we always hear about how many kids that are in custody, and we've had our door open for over a year and have had no child placed there. And I'm thinking to myself, well, dude, I got a house full of kids right now I can place for you. And so my first question to her was, are you a therapeutic foster home? And she goes, no. And I was like, well, that's why.
No, definitely. Yeah.
Because there's a ton of there's a huge need for therapeutic foster homes. But so kids that are in these residential programs, again, like these are kids that could be from all walks of life. You could have kids that maybe just couldn't get placement for whatever reason, maybe because of age, and so they go into residential. Sometimes kids go into different states, right? Because of residential. There's no residential beds in this area in Tennessee or the state that maybe you're listening in. They go to a different state for residential.
Right.
So it could be behavioral. It could be they're just older and nobody wants them and they have nowhere else to put them. It could be a variety of things in their life. So you're in residential, and were you at the same location basically from like 13 to 18, or walk me through that?
Yeah, so I was in and out. So from the first time I went in, I was in Gallatin. Which, if you're familiar with the area, you know where Gallatin is. If not, then look it up. So I was in Gallatin at this place called, it changed names while I was in there, but now it's called Bledsoe Youth Academy. So I was there for 9 months.
Okay.
And then I went home. And then I think 4 months later, I returned back into custody.
Okay.
So I don't know if anybody knows about like 30-day home trial visits or anything like on the podcast or anything, but that's what like when you leave, that's what you're on.
Yeah.
Like 30 day.
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So when it's kind of like probation, basically. You get out and you have 30 days to do good.
Right.
And if you do good for those 30 days, you get released from custody. So whenever you get out of a residential facility or anywhere, really, you're being watched for like 30 to 90 days.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yep. So, so that happened, and then kind of walk me through after you. So you're in that probationary period, and I'm assuming that probably didn't go well.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It didn't.
How many days in were you before it didn't go well?
Oh well. Yeah. I started getting in trouble again within like 2 days of being out. So yeah. But I have a really good DCS worker, and she wanted me to do right. So yeah. So 3-4 months later, I was back in residential facilities. I think that at that point I wasn't in a residential. Actually, I was in a group home. So it was called My Friend's House. So it was like,
was that in Gallatin too, or
it's in Franklin, Tennessee?
Franklin, Tennessee. My Friend's House. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I was 15 then. Well, actually, yeah, my bad. Yeah, I was. I went there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
My friend's house.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's a little less secure than residential.
Yeah, so you go to regular schools,
right?
Like kids that are in middle school, they go to the middle school up there. Kids that are in high school go to the high school, and then like you get to go to church, like stuff like that. It's more like just living at somebody's house.
Sure,
really.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense, man. And so you're going through that process now. You're at this group home. What's happening at this point? You're going to school. Are you still? Do you feel like there's any part of you at that point where you're wanting to kind of change lifestyle a little bit because of circumstances, or do you feel like not really? Like I'm still just as angry and frustrated as before. I still want to live my life, and you're kind of moving forward in that same progression.
Yeah. No. it got a lot worse.
Okay.
At that point, because at that point, like my parents were completely out of the picture at that point. So I was pretty much like a ward of the state, what they call it. So like I didn't have anybody.
Okay.
So I got a lot worse then.
Okay. So they almost could have had you potentially even up for adoption then. Would that be right? Or no?
I don't really know for adoption because I still had people that were willing to step in.
Okay, gotcha.
So I don't really, but I was basically like in the state's eyes, I was a ward of the state.
Yep, I got you. Yeah. Okay. How does when you have that title, ward of the state, your parents are in the picture. What goes through your mind at that point?
I don't know. Like it was just like hopelessness. Really, it's just like you're hopeless. Nobody wants me. Like And for me, it really wasn't like I knew my parents have struggles, but I didn't understand them. So I didn't understand like why they weren't like stepping in. Like, come on, like just step in. But like everybody has their own struggles, but that doesn't like take away from like if you really love somebody, then you'll do anything for them. So basically just hopelessness, and you just feel lost. Like you're just lost. Like where am I going to end up?
Right.
You never know what the next step is.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine. And I think unfortunately, we just had an interview with another kiddo who aged out just a few days ago, and kind of that same thing, of nobody wants me. I don't know where to go. And you can't help but just feel like your heart breaks. It does.
Yeah.
And it's not that my mom and dad adopted my brother, and the last thing that he would ever want is someone to have like pity on him. You know what I mean? Like he's just a hard dude, and he would be like, dude, he'd always tell us, don't pity me, bro. Like I'm fine. Like I made it. I did my own life. I made my way. But at the same time, like the progression of a child, and I mean, you'll have your own kids someday, and you'll even have a whole nother perspective of it when you have your own kids, and you realize the amount of love and support that they need through the smallest things that you needed, but then seeing how you need to give it to them as a father as well. It probably will reveal to you in new ways of like, wow, that makes a lot of sense why I struggled with this.
Yeah.
Because I see how much my kids need it. I didn't have it. And that makes a lot of sense why I ended up doing some of these things or struggling with these things or feeling these type of things because of that. It's a real thing, man. So you're in that space, you're a ward of a state, you're kind of working through that mentally. And then what happens at the group home?
Yeah, just I was repeatedly getting in fights. And I think and they'll send you to juvenile like instantly.
Yeah, if you fight one time, you're pretty much up.
Yeah. So I think you had like 3 times to go to juvenile, and then it's called a disruption, where you're not allowed to stay at that place anymore.
Yeah.
So from there, I sat in juvenile, I think 4 days.
Yeah.
And then.
Now, juvenile is not the same as residential.
No, not at all. That's jail.
Yeah.
For kids.
Right.
So juvenile.
So kind of explain the difference between, again, people like juvenile to residential at this point.
Yeah. So juvenile is like, I don't know if you've ever watched like 60 Days In or something like that. I don't know if like you've ever watched like a jail or like even a movie that had like jail in it. Like that's like
it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same, but it's all like criminal.
Yeah.
Like there's no kids in there that just don't have a home. Well, I mean there is, but they did something to get put in there.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So juvenile is not fun.
Yeah. And I think again, it's helpful to define definitions. Because it's like really it's foster home, therapeutic home, and then you have group home, residential, and then if you can't make it in residential, then you're in juvenile.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of flip-flop between all of those pending behavior and rehabilitative measures that take place in that individual's life, correct?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I was in all of them. So.
Yeah. So you're in juvenile, then what happens? How long were you there for?
Like 4 days. And then Miss Stacy, she came and got me out of there, and she gave me the hard talk. And then
what's the hard talk?
That's
she didn't get violent with you, did she?
No, she didn't get violent, but she probably said some words that she regretted.
Yeah, it's funny. Which if she did, that's Stacy's so sweet. You would never, she doesn't have a mean bone in her, man.
No, not at all. That's how you really know she cared.
Yeah.
And from probably that talk was probably, it wasn't the foundation of me changing my life, but it was definitely like, that's what made me start thinking like, wow.
How old were you at that point?
I was 16.
Okay. 16.
Yeah.
So you're saying that one of the most pivotal moments for you was when you were in jail at 16, basically. And the caseworker that was with you from day one kept showing up, had a real hard conversation with you out of love.
Yeah.
And that made enough of an impact that made you want to kind of pivot at that point.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. So, we had a talk, and then it was on the search to get me in somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, we really couldn't find anywhere.
Like a residential again?
Yeah, residential.
Yeah.
So, I went to this place in Waynesboro. It was Wayne's halfway house. I stayed there for 2 nights, and then Miss Stacy came and picked me up again. And then she found me the place here in Lebanon Academy.
Yep.
So then I stayed there that's the best program I've ever been to. It was actually a really good program.
Love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that would be so Lebanon Academy, Mount Juliet Academy are both in this area, and you're right, they're great.
Those are great programs. So that's the fastest one I ever completed. I didn't get in any trouble. 5 months, and I was out. And then at that point, so this whole entire time my sister has been behind the scenes working on getting me into her house. So at that point I went home to her.
How old is she?
She now is 27. I hope.
She's like, Ashley was 24. That's funny.
Then at that point she was 25, I think.
Okay.
24, I don't know.
So she was trying to find a way to get you into her house.
Yes.
So that you would no longer have to be in residential anymore.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
So you completed the program, you just didn't necessarily have anywhere to go.
No, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so once I completed that program, it was perfect timing for me to like transition into my sister's house.
Okay.
So then I went home with my sister and her boyfriend and my niece.
Okay.
I did really good for a while, and then we moved. We were living in Nashville, so I didn't know anybody up there, and I was just like hanging out all the time. Then we moved back here.
How old were you when you moved into her house?
I was 16, turning 17.
Okay. Gotcha.
I believe.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, give or take. 16, 17.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so I would say a good 6 or 7 months. I was good.
Okay.
Like everything was moving smoothly. Then I moved back here. Started going back to schools down here.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people and kind of just got back into that life again. And then
do you think that's predominantly just because, like you said, you knew a lot of people that were already in that space? So these are friends that you already knew, just got caught up with the wrong people again. Is that the predominant reason, do you think? Or
yeah, I would definitely say.
Okay.
Yeah, my friends, former friends, they had a big part of me.
Sure.
Like, and I'm not blaming anybody. I have my own decisions to make.
For sure.
Yeah, they definitely played a big role in some of the decisions I made.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the people that we hang around are the people that we become, even as adults. So no doubt. We're still responsible for our decisions, but
definitely,
we become who we hang out with for sure.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So you were in this area, started getting in trouble again. You were probably around 17 at that point, and then what's cooking?
So I was about 17, and then some stuff happened between me and my sister. Like she wasn't turning her back on me, but she couldn't do it anymore. She was scared for my safety.
Sure, yeah.
So at that point she was threatening, hey, I'm about to call Miss Stacy, tell her everything. So then I just left.
Yeah.
And I had already gotten in trouble at school and stuff, so I was expelled from school.
Right.
It's just a lot of stuff was going on. So then I ran away.
Okay.
And then when I ran away, I dabbled in some drugs.
Okay.
So at that point, I think I was on the run for 3 days, and then they located me, and then I went back into custody. I was out of custody, but not really, if it makes sense. I don't know how to explain it.
Sure.
But so I went back into custody, but at that point it was drugs. Yeah. It wasn't really like I was being a bad person.
Sure.
I was kind of just like dabbled in some bad stuff.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Definitely.
And then at that point, like, you're still 17, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then did you get picked up? Police found you when you were running away?
Yeah. So the police found me. They took me to the jail up here. And then I think it was like 15 minutes later, Miss Stacy walks in.
God bless Miss Stacy, dude.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, the funny thing is, like, it's not funny, but it is. You know, I remember the same thing with my parents too. You know, how many times, like, as a kid, from a child being up through my teenage to young adult life, I remember my parents constantly doing that same thing. Like, you know, Dad, where are you going? Oh, you know, Mike got picked up. We're going to go see Mike, you know, or, hey, Mike's, you know, in a halfway house and he needs this, or Mike got picked up again. Mike was let out. You know, Mike got in a DUI. It was just like never ending. And, but the grace that the Lord gave them for my brother Mike, and the grace that the Lord gave Stacy on behalf of you. I mean, that's Jesus working through her.
No, yeah,
that's
definitely.
Jesus working through my parents, right, to Mike. And I think a lot of times, you know, we always are like, hey, do miracles still happen in our life? Does God still do big things? And it's like, yeah, he does, but look through the people.
Yeah.
Like, God does it through the people. He does incredible things through people. We're the hands and feet of Jesus. And it's not the way that we always necessarily think, you know. It happens through those type of circumstances where somebody is able to come in, sit with you, encourage you, and next thing you know, it's like, boom, things are changing.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. I can't tell. Is that me or you?
No, this is me. My kids are, if you can hear this right now, my kids are blowing my phone up, and I don't even know how it's happening because it's on Do Not Disturb. So they're fighting, I think, at home. Let me see what they're saying. We're gonna do this live really quick since everybody's on here. Okay. Hi, Daddy. Wondering if we can keep the beanbag out and do everything else. Whatever that means.
And do everything else. Oh no.
They have this huge beanbag. We found it. Have you ever watched Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's these, we were watching Shark Tank one time, this massive beanbag that comes out to this huge bed. It's like a king size bed.
What?
It folds up like a big taco. So you unzip it, then boom, it's this huge mattress. And the kids love it because it's super thick.
Yeah.
The beanbag's massive.
Yeah.
And so we bought one and they are obsessed with it. So every Friday night, we get the beanbag out.
That's hilarious.
Anyways, dude, there you go. A little comic awesome. Relief. Yeah. So Stacy walks in, and what is she like at this point? I mean, is she still full of hope for you? Is she even more angry? Do you remember? Or
I definitely remember. She's never lost hope. That's for sure.
Yeah.
She never lost hope. She was definitely probably super angry.
Yeah.
But I know she never lost hope. If she did, then she probably would have dropped me off her caseload, you know?
Yeah.
Which I don't know if they can do that, but she would have figured out how to.
Yeah, that's funny.
So she came and picked me up. We went across the street to the DCS office, and she's like, "What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "I don't know. I really don't know." And so like whenever you go back into custody, they have to drug test you. I guess like every kid, but they always drug tested me.
Yeah.
So I took a drug test and opiates were in my system.
Okay.
And she's like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing, Damon?" I was like, "I have a problem."
Mm-hmm.
So then, from that point, we were looking for like an actual rehab for like teenagers.
Okay.
But there's just nothing like really offered for that. Like they have.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's really like nothing offered for that. Like, I guess there is, but you have to have like private insurance.
Okay.
And I didn't, obviously.
Right.
So yeah.
Which would any kid in foster care have private insurance? They have to have TED-Care.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they let my sister have the choice to like pay for it, but I mean like that's insane.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's insane.
Right.
And yeah. So yeah, at that point I had to go back into residential, but it was my main focus in there was like drugs. So
Okay.
I was doing a lot of A&D treatment stuff.
Gotcha.
But none of that stuff is super like that's a thing that I've been like looking into is like rehabs for kids.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like I went through that. I completed that one in like 5 months. It was super smooth. And then I got out. At that point, I was like 2 months away from being 18. So I was ready to age out. Like,
jeez.
Yeah. So I was like super.
Isn't that fast how quick that can happen?
Yeah.
And I think, when you think of the foster care space, usually they say it takes up to 3 placements for someone that comes into custody to eventually find a permanent home, whether that's because of their behavioral issues or because the foster family disrupts or fill in the blank. There can be a wide variety of variables that happen.
Right.
And it is crazy. We all know how fast time goes by. Like the summer just flew by. Like we're in, what are we in? We're in August.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's just nuts, And then if you think of the life of a child and they're back and forth, 6, 7 different foster homes or in residential, back out of residential. Next thing you know, boom, 18.
Yeah.
And it's like, good luck.
Yeah, it was insane.
You're 18.
Yeah.
Go get him, Tiger.
Yeah. It's like, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely. It's super scary how fast it happens.
So when you knew you were about to age out and you're in custody, what's going through your mind at this point? Are you like kind of coming to a moment where you're thinking, oh God, I'm an adult now?
Yeah,
or
no, definitely.
Were you like, oh yeah, let's do this, I'm ready to go, or a mix of both?
Yeah, I was definitely, I was super psyched that I was not going to be in DCS anymore.
Right, because you could just walk away. You're like, see you guys.
I'm like,
good luck.
I'm like, let's go. Yeah. And I had, my sister allowed me to come back home.
Yeah.
So, I was super happy about it.
Yeah.
But was I ready? Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. No, not at all.
Yeah.
But they have no choice,
Yeah.
Like once you're 18, it's kind of like, what else can we do besides what is it that
I mean, there's sometimes people go to the mission, they go to the homeless shelter. Yeah. There's independent living.
Yes, independent living.
Yeah, and usually with independent living, there's like there's no black and white. A lot of it just depends on availability.
Yeah,
it is determined upon are you on extension of foster care, or are you not? It's determined by vulnerability scores. So there's an interview process for each location. Great things.
Yeah.
But there is a space there that individuals need when they come out of custody, that is kind of a more temporary rapid rehousing model that gives individuals kind of like yourself or others, even that we've seen at the Bridge House, to land for anywhere between 3 to 6 months until they can get into independent living or maybe find housing with a family member, right?
Yeah.
We're actually working on that right now at the Bridge House as another location, which I'm super excited about. So I had to give a little plug there. So you see what I did there?
Yeah, not definitely. I love it.
But yeah, for sure, man. That's a very needed space. And so even with what you're saying, like 18, you're like, all right, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Like, sure, independent living, but I mean, how do I get into that?
Yeah.
How does that start? Now, granted, I'm sure Stacy, was trying to give options for you at that point, as well too. But you ended up landing with your sister again. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was still with my sister, trying to do this sort of independent living thing where like they pay for school, and I could go to school and stuff.
Right.
But there was some kind of, I can't really remember what it was that I wasn't allowing me to go do that.
Okay.
But there was something didn't line up with like my situation to where I could go do that, and I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to do that. So yeah, pretty much like when I turned 18, it was done. Like everything was done. So from that point, I'm like, well, screw it. Like I'm a grown man now, sort of.
Right. Yeah.
So I was just back wild, just running crazy. Yeah.
And you were with your sister. You start partying again, doing your thing.
Yeah.
What's going on in that household? Was she like, oh gosh, here we go?
Yeah. For a while, she kind of sort of didn't know.
Yeah.
It's like Damon's doing good. I'm thinking, we really haven't had that conversation before, but I'm thinking like, she thought that I was okay.
Yeah.
And then I think, no, I take that back. Yeah, I left her house.
Okay.
So I turned 18 November 10th, and November 21st, I went to work, and then I never came back home. I left on my break, and I had a friend pick me up. And then, I never came back home for 2 months. So from November to January, and then that's when like a lot of like hard drugs came into picture.
Gotcha.
Like fentanyl,
sure,
meth, like stuff like that. So
were you just living with your friends at that point, just kind of partying, doing your thing,
partying, running around, doing really whatever I wanted to,
right? Okay. And then what happens in that space those 2 months?
So I was in a place where I just didn't want to be like that anymore. I was going through like withdrawal, and I was like, I'm just gonna go through the withdrawal, and then whenever I'm done going through withdrawals, I'm gonna call my sister and like ask her like if I can come back. So I did that. Like I just fought through withdrawals, and then went back home. I was doing pretty good for, I would say, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then I went and hung out with a friend. Had him pick me up, and then we did fentanyl, and then I overdosed.
Okay.
And then so I overdosed. Went to the hospital. That experience was insane. It was crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then at that point, I was like, okay, really, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I still wasn't woken up yet. You know, I still didn't like open my eyes and like realize everything that was going on. The devil was still deceiving me. So I was in the house, I would say like 4 months, 3 months, from February till April. I was like just at home, like I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then a friend comes around again. Same thing. He gave me an offer to sell some stuff, drugs. And then my sister found the stuff. She's like, this isn't happening again. You got to leave. I left. And then that day, I got picked up on 13 charges of burglary. Okay. So, that night.
And then you were in big boy.
Yeah. Then I was in big boy jail. I was 18 at that point. Yeah, 18. So I went to jail. I'm like, holy crap.
Were you freaking out?
Yeah, I was freaking out, dude. I'm like, wow. Like, this is serious. This isn't juvenile. This isn't residential. I don't have Miss Stacy to come and save me. But actually, a really awesome thing is while I was in there, she came and visited me. Yeah. So that was amazing. So she came and visited me, and she's like, wow, like, you're in jail now. Like, this is real. I'm like, yeah, it is. I still wasn't like, I was kind of like still putting on the hard face, you know?
Sure.
Just like, whatever. Like, but deep down inside, like, I knew that this is not it. Like, this is not where I'm supposed to be at.
Yeah.
And they had pastors come in there, and like, they would preach, talk to us, and share God's word with us. And I was probably like the only one out of, I don't know how many people are in a pod, but a lot.
Yeah.
Probably like one of the very few that was like actually wanting to be invested in that. So I've always believed in God, and I've always been a sort of Christian. Sure. Not a good Christian, but I believed.
Sure.
And so I kind of just started giving faith to God, like that He would just, I don't know, just cure me of whatever I was dealing with. And so I got bonded out of jail. My friends came and bonded me out. I was living with my friends for 2 weeks after I got out of jail, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. Like, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I just went through this situation, and look what I'm doing again. Yeah. So I called my sister, and I'm like, look, this is seriously the last time. I promise. Like, this is the last time. She lets me come back home, and then I had a court date, I think 2 months later.
Okay.
For that situation.
Yeah.
And when I went to court, they arrested me on a warrant, sealed indictment, just because like they didn't charge me with everything they were supposed to charge me with.
Okay.
So I had to go back into jail, but it's not like I did anything else to go back.
Sure. You know? That's probably discouraging though. Still.
Oh yeah.
You're probably like, oh come on.
Yeah, like I was working, like trying to do the right thing. But I guess it was just something that had to happen. You know, maybe I wasn't fully ready.
Yeah.
So yeah, the second time I went in, I was in there for 2 months, and then November 7th, 2 lawyers came to see me, and they offered me a deal for 4 years of probation.
Okay.
And I took it instantly. I was like, yeah. So then I go to court November 8th, and then I get released. I get released and I'm out for maybe 2 weeks, and then I get linked back up with some really good friends that go to church, and they were like, "Come back to church. We love you. We want to see you." So I go back to church. Start going to church for another like 3 or 4 days, and then they're like, "Come out to the house." I was asking them about like baptism and stuff. I really didn't understand all that stuff.
Sure.
So they were like, "Yeah, come out to the house. We'll explain everything over dinner." And then they explained it all to me. Read some verses to me, and then they're like, "Do you believe that Jesus died for you and your sins?" And I'm like, "Of course."
Yeah.
So from that point, they prayed with me, and I was saved. And from November 21st, 2023. I've been a completely different person since I let God come into my life, and really,
dude. I feel like I'm just over here, like got this big smile on my face. I'm just cheesing over here.
Yeah,
I just love the goodness and the grace of God, man.
Yeah, amen.
For my life, for your life, for humanity. I've seen it in my brother. I've seen it in you. I've seen it. I've seen the favor of God upon kids without fathers or without families that can support them at young age. And because he is so good, his grace is so big. And he knows exactly the amount of grace and time that you need, that I need. Everybody's story is different. And what we like to do as human beings is compare you to maybe my son, Ben. And the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. But with that said, also is that you can take that the other way and say, well, if not much is given, then there's probably more that's not as much as required. And there's more grace, right?
Right.
Because you have many people that have had horror stories at young ages, and you can't compare them to a child that comes into a home where both parents are there and they're loving, supporting, and they're taking them to church and they're investing into them, and coaches are investing into them. They've had stability in school, stability in sports. You cannot compare them to that other child and expect the same results. It's impossible. And God is so miraculous that he can take maybe the years that you feel like were lost and redeem them, and then all propel you forward in ways maybe even further than some of these other kids. You know, I mean, he's just crazy like that. He just does wild stuff, man.
It's insane.
So that's why I'm cheesing over here. I love it. Definitely. You know, I love it. He's no respecter of any specific person, man. He just does his thing. You know,
he does.
We don't always understand it, but it's like,
I still kind of don't understand it, but
I'm thankful. You know, at the end of the day, even though I get frustrated sometimes, like, man, God, I don't understand. I'm actually thankful, and I find peace in the ability to not understand. Because if I can understand, that
takes away from
being, then how is he God of everything if I can get it?
Yeah.
I don't need to get it. I just need to know he's got it, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Come on, someone tweet that one.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So you end up, here's the other thing I love too. You have people that invited you into their community.
Yeah.
And I want the church to get this if you hear this podcast. Someone invited you into their community. They invited you into their home. Okay. Highlight that. And then secondly, they broke bread with you.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, opened up the word of God and started declaring the truth of the Lord.
Yeah.
If that is not one of the most biblical pictures of the church, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you look in Acts, you look anywhere in the Bible, it's like people invited them into their home. They had dinner. They opened up the word of God.
Yeah.
And truth was made known. And then next thing you know, there's community and salvation.
Amen. Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things that we can do in the church is bring people to a building and not bring them into our home and not bring them into a meal. It's like, that's why when you and I first hang out, you're like, yeah, man, I'll meet with you. What are we going to do? It's like, dude, let's go out to eat.
Yeah.
And you're like, kind of nervous. I don't even know you. I don't even know what you look like. You don't know what I look like. And I'm like, and it's kind of nervous when you eat in front of someone you don't really know, you know, but there's a weird bond that I think the Lord put in us, that's forged over food.
No, definitely. It's like everything is over food.
It is, man. And so, you know, just in that moment to eat and then just talk, and then, you know, it was important for me for my kids to be there because I really try to include them into just my life, and not just like compartmentalize ministry in my life. I want them to just hear and be a part of, because I know God's going to use them. You know,
definitely.
And even when we left, they were like, Ben was like, Dad, I kind of heard that story. He's like, man, that's so cool. Like, he seems like such a cool guy. And I'm like, yeah, that's he awesome. Is, man. Like, God's using him. And he's like, so is he going to work at the Bridge House? Like, what's he going to do? What's the plan? I'm like, bro, we're just, we're going to do a podcast, and God's using him. And so it was just cool, man. Even just see how it affects the kids. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, man, you're listening. Highlight that. Breaking bread, bringing into your home, bringing in the community. The biggest disservice we can do as Christians is just bring people to a building, and that's it.
Yes,
you got to bring them into the church for sure.
Yeah,
bring them into a building. That's, I mean, it says to not forsake the gathering of the saints. Like, you don't forsake that. You need that. We're encouraged in worship services. We're encouraged in sitting and learning from the Word of God and corporate worship. Absolutely, 100% biblical. Huge fan of it. I love it. Secondly, the next beautiful part is you got to take step 2, break bread, get in the house, invite people that maybe are not in the same path as you.
Yeah.
Bring them in.
Yeah.
And see what God does, man. Yeah. So that's special, bro. So they did that. And then here you are. And what's life looking for you like right now, my man?
Yeah. Life's awesome. Life is amazing. I'm in church. I'm in my word. I've got a good job. I'm a
Where
plumber.
You go to church?
I go to Hillcrest Baptist. Okay. Yeah, so
nice.
right here, actually.
Yeah.
It's like right up the road.
It's a great church.
Yeah, it's awesome.
There's my son calling me again. When you have kids someday, you're going to know that they are... hold on. We're going to do this live again. We're keeping it real here today.
Yeah, let's keep it real.
Usually I'll try to stop this.
No, I love it.
Oh my gosh. Hey, bro, can you please stop calling? We're in the middle of a podcast. I love you. Yes, you can keep the beanbag out.
Yes, you can keep the... That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
That's hilarious.
That's so funny, man. Be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Unless it's an emergency. Watch it be like someone's bleeding.
It's it's like terrible.
Judah's leg is carved off. I'm like, okay, yeah, you need to call me that. Yeah. Which would not surprise me. Judah, I don't want to speak this over his life, but that kid gets hurt. Like, it's just, we'll be playing and we'll wrestle in the same spot 100 times. The one time we do it with Judah, he'll break his arm. We're
really?
Just like, oh yeah, dude, always.
There's always
I remember one time where we were roughhousing, and it was the first, my wife just started her first job here as we moved. She's a nurse practitioner. It was like her first shift.
Yeah.
And we weren't even really roughhousing that much, but he gets on the side of the chair, decides to like Superman off it, and he kind of fell. And he looks at me, and his arm is hanging, and I immediately am like, that's not normal. And it's all like, I've never seen an arm look like that. And he's like, something's wrong with my arm. And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure, dude. Something is definitely wrong with your arm. Like, we got to go to the hospital. So anyways, hopefully that's not the case. We'll find out in a minute. But Michael's going to make sure that this is still recording. So you're in church, man. You're a plumber. You're going to Hillcrest.
Yeah.
Great church. Is the pastor, is it Ty?
Yeah, Tyler Galden.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
He's amazing.
Yeah. Great. I haven't actually met him, but seen him on TikTok, and he's such an animated guy.
Yeah,
I love his.
Seriously, his aneurysms are.
You can tell he's very confident in his own skin, who he is. I love that. I love meeting people who are just confident who they are, and they're themselves. He seems very much like that.
Yeah. So definitely,
it's fun to listen to him. And so you're going to that church. You're plugged in. You're a plumber?
Yeah, plumber.
We were just talking about how it's like, 95 degrees and you're going underneath the houses. And
it's crazy.
40, 50-hour work weeks.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
All the time.
How's that trade?
It's an awesome trade. I would say it's an awesome trade. I love learning, figuring out problems.
Yes.
I don't recommend it to anybody.
Sure.
But if you...
Got to be the right person.
Yeah, but if you like hard work and you like to be nasty, then plumbing. That sounded really wrong, but
I love that. If you like hard work, you like to be nasty, you need to be a plumber.
No, it's true though.
That's awesome, man.
It's true.
Well, thank God for all our plumbers. We know. I mean, I can tell you, first off experience from the Bridge House. My gosh, the amount of times we have to call plumbers out here is just unbelievable. Jeez. it's like we have kids plugging toilets for like no random reason other than like they just wanted to see what it took to plug a toilet. It's like, how did this Lego castle get in this toilet? That's impossible.
Yeah.
Anyways, but so you're doing that, man. And I think one of the things that was really interesting is, I don't want to tell your story, but you heard the Lord kind of speak to you that you needed to do more with your story and not just sharing it, but also working with kids.
Yeah.
Maybe sharing it at the Bridge House, or sharing it wherever he would open it up for you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when you contacted Stacy, right? And said, "Hey, is that right? Walk me through that."
So I've been praying for a blessing prayer. Make me blessable, give me a blessing, and let me be a blessing to others.
Yeah.
So I prayed that for a while, and it just came upon me like that's what I'm supposed to do. I know that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what God put me through all these situations for, and now that I'm praying for it, that was just opened up to me. So I probably prayed on it for like another week, and then I was like, yeah, this is it. Like God just put it in me. Like this is what you're doing. So I contacted Stacy. She reached back out to me. She's like, yeah, for sure. I can definitely see what I can do about that. And I guess from that point when she reached out to you.
Yes.
And I was kind of like worried because she was like, listen, like we're not really going to be able to like, because I was going to go through all these facilities that I was in and like talk to the kids or whatever. She's like, I'm like, dang, I'm not going to be able to do this. And then it's like, God just opened up more and more doors. You're like, you reached out to me. You're like, hey man, I'm with the Bridge House, all this. And then we sit down and talk. And then you're like, give me all these opportunities. And I'm like, wow, like God is working. Like God is working.
Yeah.
Like,
don't tempt me with a good time. I'll get it done, man. That's one thing people don't realize about me. It's like, it's just in my blood. It's like, if I feel like I recognize something that God's doing in somebody, like, and I have the resources to make it happen, like I will make it happen.
Right.
Like, I just love living that life. Like, I think that, I don't know. And I think even just in our communication, you probably recognize like how quick I respond, and you actually are the same way. And I think there's just something beautiful, like when you live your life that way, like when you recognize that people are wanting to step out, and we're all busy, everybody's busy, and it always comes down to more like, what do we prioritize? What are we prioritizing in our life is really the big question. My dad would always say that to me. He's like, don't tell me you're busy. Just tell me that you didn't prioritize it. And I would always have a hard time saying those words. Like I didn't, because I had to own it. Yeah. I had to really recognize like, oh, I just didn't prioritize it. And so I think when it comes to when God is moving things in our life, he's bringing people into our life. Yeah. It's like, dude, prioritize it, move them forward. If you can empower people that God's calling, that God's moving in their life, expedite that, man. Set them on fire. They're on fire. Don't let that fire go out. Like throw some gasoline on that thing and get it cooking. You know what I mean?
Straight up,
see what God will do. And man, that's just how things get done. So I love that, man. And you just jumped right in. You're like, sure, how about this podcast? Like, all right, let's do it. Let's do this. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question really quick too. So you got this passion now. You're on this podcast. I know we talked about you potentially coming here and sharing with some of the kids here at the Bridge House.
Yeah.
We talked about some other things too, but before we wrap up, I think the beauty of this conversation is it talks about the power of the church.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It talks about, we're talking about the power of the caseworker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking about a gracious sister, like a family member who just consistently loved you and showed you grace too. But there's one individual that I know that you didn't mention, and I think it was your teacher.
Oh yeah! Oh my goodness! Yeah, I didn't even.
Well, dude. Let me tell you the first thing about public speaking, which you're learned. I'm sure God's going to use you great in this. All the stuff you want to remember to say when you get on a mic, for whatever reason, it just goes away. I don't know why. It's like some of your best points. You're like, and then you look at your notes, and you're like, man, why didn't I say that? That was like the best point. I didn't say it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you get behind a mic, things change. So it's all good, man.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring it up because I know when we were talking at the Mexican restaurant, you were like, dude, you were just going. Spent a lot of time on this individual and how much they invested, because that individual was from your church, right?
Yeah.
And so just tell me a little bit about her role. She was a teacher, and she was very involved in your life and your kind of your the on-ramp to your relationship with Jesus too, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. So actually, after we had lunch, I was talking to her about that, and then so I found out that she wasn't my teacher. I thought she was my teacher this whole time. She was actually my sister's teacher.
Your sister's teacher?
Yeah. So I thought, but she obviously
That's awesome.
she was at my school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought she was like my second or third grade teacher, but she was my sister's.
Your sister's teacher. Yeah. Okay.
But she watched me.
Yeah.
My whole life.
Right.
I was best friends with her daughter.
Okay.
Which is actually now my girlfriend. So
awesome. Yeah. Is that who just dropped you off today?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, she watched me basically my whole entire life.
Okay.
And she always said that like I just seen that little fire in you, like you were super loving, but you were also like crazy, like you're like running all over the place.
Yeah.
And then moved schools. We lost contact for a long time, but when I went to a different school, I was at a school with her niece, and we became friends. So it's like, God's definitely in this situation right here. Yeah. The way that all of it's played out. Yeah. Because I lost contact with her, but I was always around somebody that could get me back into contact with her. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was an encouragement to you as well too. I mean, regardless of whether or not she was directly your teacher, she was involved, because I think the school system plays a huge role into foster care. Obviously caseworkers play a massive role. The church plays a massive role. Both foster families and bio families, being your sister, play a massive role. Yeah. And so I think it's important in this conversation to highlight all of those, because whether she was directly your teacher or your sister's teacher or whatever, she recognized something and brought life to it, encouragement to it, and even let you date her daughter.
Which is crazy, insane to me. Blows my mind.
Hey, that's a whole nother level of trust right there, buddy.
It's insane. It's insane. It's crazy.
That's hilarious.
So like they invited me to church when I was 16. Still obviously living crazy.
Sure.
But they invited me to church. I never took it serious. But that's like, I knew I was obviously a believer. Like I knew, but I wasn't like taking it serious or anything. And I wasn't a saved person. She was always just like, invite Damon to church. Invite Damon to church. Invite Damon to church. And then she's
awesome.
And then now I live with them. It's crazy. Like everything is it's insane.
Yeah. That's special, bro. Well, dude, I'm so thankful that you took time to just be on here today, man.
Yeah, thank you.
It blesses me. And I think, just the biggest takeaways, again, that I get and I hope that people get is, again, just the power of the church. Man, caseworkers out there, keep doing what you're doing. All the Stacys out there, keep loving on these kids. Even if they age out and they're still incarcerated, man, you have no idea what potential they have and what they can continue to become. Don't give up. And then thirdly, man, let's not just invite people to church, but let's remember to bring them into our homes, break bread, and introduce the gospel to them as well too. We need it all, man. And so, teachers, keep being teachers.
Yes.
We need our schools. We need them. We need the teachers. We need the assistant principals, the coaches. It's all part of it. It's all part of it, man.
It is.
And what makes a community whole and healthy. And even if it's just for 2 lives that are radically changed, right? We don't know what those 2 lives are going to eventually do. I mean, bro, you're only 19 years old. You have no idea what God has in store for you for the rest of your life.
Amen.
And so dream big, bro. And when you think that's your dream, here's what I always tell people when they're like, man, I don't know what God's calling me. I'm like, dream your biggest dream and then reverse engineer it. Yeah. Like dream your biggest dream and then start to kind of like walk it back and think like, how do I take those steps to get to where I believe God's calling me to go? Yeah. But if you can't dream it, how can you pray for it? Right. You got to dream big. And then, there's many nights I lay in bed and I always ask the Lord, God, give me a God dream. Yeah. Give me a God dream. Dream big. And even with what we're doing here, this is a big dream that took off and it's still in process, and we have huge plans for the space and kids that are in the space. And we just believe that God's going to continue to fund it, help it. And so we're believing that for you too, my man.
Yes, sir.
Dude, thanks for being on this show. And we're praying for you, bro. We're believing for you. We're going to hear more of you. I know that. It's going to be good.
This isn't it.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. For sure, bro.